الحمد لله الذي خلق السماوات والأرض وجعل الظلمات والنور ثم الذين كفروا بربهم يعدلون. الحمد لله الذي أنزل على عبده الكتاب ولم يجعل له عوجا. الحمد لله الذي هدانا لهذا وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله. لقد جاءت رسل ربنا بالحق. نعم. So after going through those ayat last week from Surah Ali Imran, which were very, very important, we're going into the explanation of the hadith, الشرح. أولا لفظ الحديث. So the wording of the hadith first. عن ابن عباس رضي الله تعالى عنهما قال: بت عند خالتي ميمونة فتحدث رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم أهله ساعة ثم رقد، فلما كان ثلث الليل الآخر قعد فنظر إلى السماء فقال: إن في خلق السماوات والأرض واختلاف الليل والنهار لآيات لأولي الألباب. ثم قام فتوضأ، نعم، واستنى فصلى 11 ركعة، ثم أذن بلال فصلى ركعتين، ثم خرج فصلى الصبح. وهذا لفظ البخاري. So Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu said, بت عند خالتي ميمونة. I spent the night of the house of my aunt, my maternal aunt, Maymuna. So the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam تحدث مع أهله ساعة. He spoke to his family for an hour. Benefits. I'll ask the brothers first. What are some, just the beginning of this hadith? فتحدث رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم أهله ساعة ثم رقد. Then he laid down. فلما كان ثلث الليل, he laid down, went to sleep. الآخرة قعد فنظر إلى السماء, and he looked to the sky. فقال: إن في خلق السماوات والأرض واختلاف الليل والنهار لآيات لأولي الألباب. And then he looked to the sky and he said, the ayah from Surah Ali Imran, indeed, in the creation of the heavens and the earth, in the differing of the night and the day, them taking the place of other, is a sign to ulul albab. Albab, jamu lub. We talked about this before, right? Albab is the plural of lub, which means intellect. Like if you find inside of a seed, mukassarat, the seeds, like full Sudani, like cashew, laus, that which is inside of it is called lub. It's called lub. That's right. It's called the seed, the pulp of it. That's what's inside this seed right here. This hard shell. I mean, not inside the seed, inside the shell. That's what I'm trying to say. Inside the shell, this is called the what? Pulp. The seed that's inside of there. This is what another name for the brain. Now, so this is a sign for those who have intellect. From the first part of this hadith, before going further, what are some benefits? ما بعض الفوائد نستنبط من حدث إلى مع أهله ساعة ثم رقد فلما كان ثلث الليل الآخر قعد فنظر إلى السماء إلى آخره. What's some benefits we can get from that? That the Prophet ﷺ, Ibn Abbas spent the night over Aunt Maymuna's house, and then the Prophet talked to his family for an hour, and then after that he laid down, and then when the third of the night came, he sat up and he recited this ayah. Some about the for some benefits. Anyone?
Nah,
Nah. Myself.
he specifies some time for his family.
Barakallah fi. You see this? This is very important. إخوة. ولا أريد إحراجا لأحد ولكن لابد إن نعيش الواقع. I don't want to embarrass anyone, but we have to live in reality. نحن ونقرأ قوله تعالى الرجال قوامون على النساء بما فضل الله بعضهم على بعض وبما أنفقوا من أموالهم. We read this ayah that the men are the protectors, the maintainers, the authority over the women, because Allah has preferred the men over the women and because the men spend out of their wealth. So every man, when he reads this Muslim man, he wants this to be his description, right? I take care of my family. كل رجل المسلم يريد أن يتصف بهذه الصفة. أنا أنفق على أهلي، أنا يعني أدافع عن أهلي. I protect my family. I'm a man. لكن هناك مدافعة روحانية أهم من المدافعة المادية. But there is spiritual protection that is more important than the financial protection. فكما أن إذا رجل ما استطاع أن ينفق على أهله لكسله أو غفلته أو إهماله نلومه. So just like a man, if he's unable to take care of his family because of laziness, because of heedlessness, or because of neglect, we would blame him. كذلك الغفلة والإهمال الديني. Likewise, it's the heedlessness or the neglect, the religious neglect. How many families? They gather together upon foolishness and nonsense. The husband leading the foolishness and nonsense. كلكم راع وكلكم مسؤول عن رعيته. All of you are a shepherd and all of you will be questioned about his flock. ها هو الأسوة المثلى صلى الله عليه وسلم. This is the great example, the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم. فتحدث مع أهله ساعة. He was teaching his family. إذا رأينا الرجل أنه ناقص في مسؤوليته، إذا تكاسل أو كان كسل عن النفقة فكيف بالدين. So if we blame the man if he was lazy when it comes to spending on his family, then what about religion? At the very least, أقل شيء يجيد قراءة الفاتحة. يصح له أن يؤمهم في الصلاة. At the very least, he should be able to recite the Al-Fatiha correctly so he can lead his family in prayer. At the very least, the Fatiha should be in the neck of every man. Every man should be able to recite the Al-Fatiha and lead his family in prayer. This is the very least, bare minimum. So what about this? I mentioned this before. What about parents? They're very happy to send their children to Islamic schools. الأسر تريد أن تبعث أولادها إلى مدارس إسلامية، مع أن الأبوين قد يكونا مقصران أو مقصرين في طلب العلم. فإذا كان كذلك يأتي الولد أو البنت من المدرسة بواجبات إسلامية, right? So parents and families, they want their kids to go to Islamic schools. And they're very happy about that. But at the same time, the parents could be what? Neglectful when it comes to Islamic knowledge. So then those children return from school with Islamic homework. ويعجز الأبوان عن مساعدة الأولاد لجهلهم بالدين. So then the parents, they can't help their children with their homework because of their ignorance of the religion. So just like كما أننا نستحي إذا طلب أولادنا منا الطعام والشراب وإذا عجزنا عن ذلك يعني نشعر بالسجن. Just like if our children would have asked us for food and drink and we weren't able to do it, we would feel shy. We'll feel embarrassed. فكيف بالدين? So how should it be more so with the religion? ها فتحدث رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم مع أهله ساعة. So he talked to his family for an hour. ثم رقد, and then he laid down and went to sleep. فلما كان ثلث الليل, and then as we read already, when the third of the night came, and like that. Okay, فائدة الأولى أن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم, the first benefit is that the Prophet used to spend time with teaching his family, speaking with them, spend time with them. Okay, this is the first thing. Any other benefits? وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته. Sister ذاكرة, Sister حسنة, نعم, Sister سميحة, نعم. Any other benefits?
Assalamu alaikum.
وعليكم السلام.
One, no, Abdul Haq.
SubhanAllah.
One benefit would be that you know that they're getting the correct information as long as you're upon what is correct.
نعم, يستنبط هكذا أيضا that you know that they're getting, تعلم أنهم يأخذون الصواب منك طالما أنت تمشي على الصواب. نعم محمد. نعم, that it's encouraging them to increase their Islamic knowledge when you sit and teach them. Now, وَتَعَاوَنُوا عَلَى الْبِرِّ وَالتَّقْوَى, and aid one another in piety and righteousness. Anything else? Another benefit. He said, قال فتحدث رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم مع أهله ساعة فلم يطيل بعد العشاء بالكلام. So he didn't what? He didn't talk. He didn't stay up late after Isha. Even though it was Deen, he said an hour. So he didn't stay up late. Why? We know what happens. We get with our family, we're enjoying ourselves, we're talking, even if it's dhikrillah, even if the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Do not lose out on an obligation by doing something optional. We stay up at night and talking, even reading Quran, and then what happened? Miss Fajr. Right? We stay up doing something good. I'm not even talking about Netflix, Hulu, and all of that. I'm talking about actually dhikrillah, reading Quran, and because of that, miss Fajr. No, it would be better to read a little, talk a little, and then go to sleep. كما فعل النبي, like the Prophet ﷺ did. فلما كان ثلث الليل. The next benefit we get is that this is the time for at-tahajjud, the third of the night. So when the third of the night is passed, this is the time for at-tahajjud. Okay, كيف نقيس ثلث الليل? How do we know when the third of the night is?
سبحان الله, هذا يعني لما أرشدنا يعني على قيام داود عليه السلام.
نعم.
كان ينام نصف الليل ويقوم ثلث الليل ثم ينام ثلث الأخير.
الله أكبر. So he said this is ثاني يا شيخ.
يعني أفضل القيام قيام داود.
نعم.
فكان ينام نصف الليل ثم يقوم ثلثه ثم ينام آخره.
نعم. He said
يعني ثم ينام الثلث الأخير.
نعم.
يعني قبل الفجر.
نعم. So he said that the Prophet ﷺ used to do what? He used to sleep half the night and then pray a third of the night and then rest and lay down for another third of the night. حتى even to the point that the word التهجد من أضداد في اللغة العربية is from the dad. Abdad is a word that it's its own antonym, right? So at tahajjud, it means he prayed all night and slept a little. يعني من معاني التهجد أنه نام الليل أكثره وصلى قليل منه. It means he slept most of the night and prayed a little bit. وكذلك من معاني التهجد أنه صلى أكثر الليل ونام جزء أقل منه. So it also means that he prayed all night and slept a little bit, or slept all night and prayed a little bit. So both of them are tahajjud. So from that tahajjud, so how do we know? كيف نعلم إذا دخل ثلث الليل? How do we know? It's important to know. Who wants to pray tahajjud? You have to know how to get. نعم تفضل.
2 hours after.
Whenever Maghrib comes in,
Your connection is real bad, Abu Rumaysa. Your voice is breaking up real bad. Now, Sister Dhakira said, lead by example. Now, كن أنت الأسوة. كن أنت الأسوة لأهلك. No, we can't hear you at all, Abu Rumaysa. So I think Abu Rumaysa, what he's trying to say is, he's trying to say that you count the time from Maghrib
divided by 3
till Fajr, and then you divide it by 3.
SubhanAllah. Oh, I'll write it.
Now we can hear you.
You hear me? Yeah.
Now we can hear you.
Yeah, that's all I'm saying. Maghrib to Fajr, count that time?
Nah. So then you divide that from night, because it's a third of the night. So night falls at Maghrib. الليل تجن في المغرب عند المغرب غروب الشمس تماما وذهاب الشفق. So when that time comes, when that glow, that red glow disappears, you're now at night. So you count from that time till al-Fajr al-Haqiqi, the real Fajr, right? When it's in the horizon, not the light going like this, the light is going like that, the real Fajr. Hey, nah. Hey, nah. This is the false Fajr. I'm sorry. This is the false Fajr. This is the real Fajr. Nah. Hey, nah. That's what they call it. Al-Fajr al-Kadhib wa-Fajr al-Haqiqi. The Fajr al-Sadiq. Now, the lying Fajr or the fake Fajr and the truthful Fajr. Hey, nah. Hey, nah. So it has to spread in the horizon. Because the sun rises what? In the horizon. In the horizon. Not like that. So you count from that time, from Maghrib. When Maghrib goes out and the sky is black, this is nighttime now. Isha, it's nighttime. So until what? Until Fajr. And then you divide it into 3 parts.
So Fajr al-Sadiq is how? What is?
When the light of dawn begins to spread in the horizon horizontally. Nah, horizontally. If you see light going, but see the problem with recognizing from here, we're low, right? نحن في الواد نريد نكون ان المكان مرتفع حتى نرى بعيوننا. And also the false lights. So somebody in our station wouldn't be able to do it. We have to appoint and be responsible Muslims and appoint someone to look from a high station, not in the valley, in a raised station, and see actual Fajr for us. To see actual Fajr. Because down here we have tall buildings and we have those airplane towers and الآن عندنا ضوء مصطنع. وهذا الضوء يكون في السماء. ممكن يعني هذا ضوء يعني يتشبه على الإنسان يتلبس على الإنسان. أي نعم يختلط عليه. نعم. So that could happen. So you have to be in a high place to be able to see the actual horizon, and then and we should have people appointed to do that, just like we should have people appointed to see the hilal. صوموا لرؤيته وأفطروا لرؤيته. أقول على أهمية أن نرى بعيوننا وليس بالقياس أي نعم لا science. نعم.
So can you divide it from the Maghrib time on the Azan to the Fajr time? I don't know.
You want to do it after the Maghrib time when the red?
Go by the time on the app. Like as a Muslim Pro. Is that good for?
No. You don't want to start from there. Why? Because that's when Maghrib comes in. You want to wait till the light of Maghrib is gone. But this is the beginning of Isha. That's night. So now when that sun, when the red of the sun in the sky is gone, this is going to be after Maghrib, right? After Maghrib, that red of the sun is gone. Now you're in night, dark time, nighttime. From that point on till the beginning of Fajr, this is when you're going to be counting. And then you're going to divide that by 3, right? So then when a third of that time disappears, you're in the first third of the night, right? And then the second, and then the next third, you're going to be in the last third of the night. Nah.
من كل الليل أوتر رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم يعني من أوله ومن آخره ومن نصفه.
Subhanallah. That the Prophet ﷺ, he prayed at each time. He prayed in the beginning, when the first third of the night, he prayed in the middle third, and he prayed in the last third. MashaAllah. To show us that all of this, كل ذلك حين وقت التهجد. Nah. So also, that the Prophet ﷺ slept and woke. كان ينام ويستيقظ على الذكر. he would sleep and wake up in the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And look, he's reciting ayat. This is also very important to do, to recite ayat or dua when a person first wakes up, in order to remember the start that day with the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now, okay, ثم أذن بلال. So then Bilal will call the adhan. فَصَلَّى رَكَعَتَيْن. So the Prophet prayed 2 raka'at. What does this tell us? We have a big habit of making, even sometimes brothers say, oh, wait, they want to, after they get to the masjid, pray the rak'atain of Fajr. No, we pray late. So the rak'atain of Fajr should be prayed at home when the salah comes in. You come in here, the only prayer some person should be making when they get here is tahiyat al-masjid. If they're praying rak'atain al-Fajr and we don't pray till the prayer comes in what now? 6:20, 6:17, around that time. We don't pray here till 6:45. So a person has enough time to make wudu, pray the 2 rak'ahs of Fajr, and then come to the masjid. That way, because what happens is that we don't want to make it a sunnah of making 2 rak'at after Fajr. It's not a sunnah. That is an exception for the one who has an excuse and missed praying the 2 rak'at of Fajr before, when as soon as Fajr came in. But we have a habit here, Masjid Noor, that people are praying 2 rak'at after Fajr every day. No, you have to wake up. No, Muhammad. Sure? Okay. Now, so you have to wake up after Fajr, before Fajr, and then pray the 2 rak'at when Fajr comes in. When Fajr comes in, we have some more answers here on that. Now.
You are not prayed, you can pray, right? After Fajr immediately?
Right, but it shouldn't be a habit.
Nice.
That shouldn't be every day.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam. It's bad.
What about Salatul Ishraq?
So I don't know. I never heard of Salatul Ishraq. I saw it on the prayer calendars. I've never read Salatul Ishraq in any book. I haven't unless you're talking about the salah and when the sun raises up, and then you're talking about those 2 rak'at. The Prophet said that the one who sits in his place, this is the problem, people do it wrong. The Prophet said the one who sits in his place that he prayed in and doesn't move.
Not even in the masjid.
Yeah, in the masjid. He sits in his place and doesn't move until the sun rises. And then he prays 2 rak'at, it will be counted as Umrah. He get the reward of Umrah. But once he gets around and talks and so on and so on, that's not how the Prophet ﷺ mentioned it. He said the person sits in his place and he doesn't move and he waits until the sun rises. This is the patience and like that. This is for that. That's not duha. I think this is the 2 rak'at Abbad is talking about. Ishraq, now.
Nah, that's what I'm talking about.
What we do is that after the Fajr, we read Quran and some explanation.
Now.
And then after the sunrise, we pray to Allah.
There's no problem if everybody stays in their place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They just move next to the wall.
Yeah, once people started moving around, we have to remember when the Prophet ﷺ mentions something, he gives detail, then we have to pay attention to that detail. Like, for instance, we're missing so much by not living or having the masajid close to our homes. We're missing so much ajr. We're still getting ajr, inshallah, but we're missing so much ajr.
Yeah.
Like the hadith of Ibn Abbas, the Prophet ﷺ said what? من تبكر إلى صلاة الجمعة ومن بكر وتبكر وابتكر جزاك الله خير وغسل واغتسل, right? ومشى ولم يركب. He said walked and didn't ride. So don't say, oh no, the tires are getting the same. No. We had the ways of riding back then. He said ولم يركب, and he didn't ride. So that every step you're going to get a hasana and you're going to get a sayyah. That's the greater the distance, the greater the reward. Nah. So these are the things. So we miss out on that if we leave out the detail, there's no guarantee of reward. It's like a prescription. It's like a prescription. هو كالإرشادات الطبيب بالدواء. إذا تتبع النتيجة تجد النتيجة، وإذا خرفت أو خرجت من اتباع إرشادات الطبيب فالنتيجة غير مضمونة. Right? So if you follow the prescription of the doctor, right? نعم.
يدعي حب يعني في بيت عربي يعني مشهور كل يدعي حب ليلى وليلى لا تقر له بذلك.
Hey, now he's talking about the poem of Majnun Layla. He said everybody claims that they love Layla, but Layla has not confirmed that she has any love for any of them. Right? He said this is an example of following the Prophet ﷺ. So if we really follow the Prophet ﷺ, that what? We will follow him. قل إن كنتم تحبون الله فاتبعوني. Right? يحببكم الله ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم والله غفور رحيم. If you really love Allah, follow me. So the thing is, when when we find the detail in the hadith, stick to the detail. This is the prescription. Stick to the prescription, or you're not guaranteed the result that was guaranteed in the prescription. Once we change it, we change the time for it. What if I do it at this time? Ask the doctor when he gives you medicine. He says, take it 3 times a day, every 8 hours. What if I do it every 6? This is going to be the same result. No, Muhammad. No.
What's the difference between Qiyamul Layl and Tahajjud?
Same thing.
Same
thing. نعم. لا فرق بين قيام الليل والتهجد.
نعم.
تهجد وقيام الليل. Yeah, tahajjud and qiyam al-layl is the same thing. نعم.
Right now, when I do the calculation, it's around 4 a.m., right?
Mm-hmm.
It's around
4 a.m. for what? The last third? Yeah, inshallah. نعم. نعم, ما شاء الله. نعم.
السلام عليكم.
وعليكم السلام. ها؟
No.
Okay. نعم, تفضل يا عباد.
نعم, with Salat al-Ishraq, what is the actual name? That's not the right name?
I don't know.
That's the
No, Duha is after that. The best time for Duha, Salat al-Duha, is right before, as the Prophet ﷺ instructed, right before قبيل الظهر.
صلاة الأوابين حين ترمض الفصال يعني صغار الإبل حين يعني يحرقها الرمل صغار الإبل.
الله أكبر.
ترمض الفصال.
نعم. The Sheikh is narrating the hadith about the time of Salat al-Duha is right when the sand starts getting hot. Right when the sand, so it's like before noon. It's Qubayl al-Dhuhr, right before noon. The sun is starting to get a little hot, and you feel it. It's not hot yet, but it's starting to get hot because the sun is about to reach its zenith. So you make sure you get it in right before then. He said, هذه صلاة الأوابين. This is the salat of those who are returning to Allah, trying to return to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Nah, sure.
Nah, I was asking because I was reading before.
Well, 1 minute, Abbad, 1 minute.
Oh, no.
Abid is after Maghrib.
No, that's not. He's not describing. He's not naming the Salat al-Awwabin. He's saying that the people who are Awwabin, this is the time they would pray Duha. Now. Those who are trying to return to Allah. Nah. تفضل عباد.
Nah, I was asking because before I used to do that exact thing. I used to sit in the same spot until the time. However, I was reading. The ulama was explaining that what meant was sitting in the same spot meant not leaving the masjid. Is that the case or no?
Nah. No, he said he sat in his place, that he stays in his place. He didn't say وَمَكَثَ فِي الْمَسْجِدِ مَكَانَهُ. He said مَكَانَهُ, that he stays in his place. Nah. So this could be a point of view. However, because the Prophet said he stayed in his place, then that's different than the hadith where the Prophet ﷺ said, whoever waited for the salat, مَنْ انْتَظَرَ الصَّلَاةَ فَهُوَ فِي الصَّلَاةِ. Yeah, whoever waited for the prayer, from prayer to prayer, he doesn't have to sit in the same place. But for this particular salat, then is the person sits in the same place. Wallahu a'la wa a'lam. Now, so also from the benefits of the hadith is the Prophet used to wake up, upon dhikr and go to sleep upon dhikr. He said, وهذا مهم جدا في المساجد يا إخوة وأخوات. This is important in the message. وإخوة يعني بالأخص, especially the brothers. فصلى ركعتين ثم خرج فصلى الصبح, right? And then he would come out. Because sometimes the brothers are giving the iqama before the instructions of the imam. بعض الناس يقيمون قبل إشارة الإمام. هذه ليس من السنة. This is not from the sunnah. أي نعم. Right? He said the adhan حق المؤذن يعني وحق الصلاة. The adhan is the right of the prayer. As soon as the time for prayer comes in, call the adhan. Well, this is some opposition of the sunnah that we have in our masajid. When the salah comes in, it doesn't matter about these prayer calendars and schedules. When the time for salah come in, the adhan must be called. Even if the iqamah is going to be delayed. أي نعم. لا عندنا مشكلة هنا في أمريكا عندهم جداول لتوقيت الصلاة. فالأذان يكون في ساعة معينة. لكن الإقامة في وقت يعني متأخر. فيؤخر الأذان نصف ساعة أو ساعة. أي نعم. فالأذان في وقت الصلاة. So the adhan is to be called when the salah comes in. حتى لو أخروا إقامة لا بأس. لكن الأذان في وقتها. Now, the adhan must be called at its time, even if the iqamah is going to be delayed. No problem. But when the salah comes in, the adhan. Then after that, لو اتفقوا على تأخير أو the Prophet ﷺ used to do that in the summer. Abridu. He used to tell them in the summertime. They used to call the adhan for the salah, and he used to tell them, wait for the iqamah, wait for the salah until it gets cooler. Aina.
So you said the sun is to be called when the time comes.
When the salah comes in.
When the salah comes in. So are we going by this time or when you come in and?
No, the adhan should be whatever time that they know that the salat is in, like on this time. The adhan should be called.
Not the one on the half.
Huh?
Not the one on the half.
Either one.
That is all.
Either one. That's the same thing, right?
Yeah, at the same time, it says the start time.
What happens is that we give azan 15 to 20 minutes before.
For the massage is because of the convenience.
Right.
Nobody's available. So
right.
Come late and
so this is why من لا ما لا يتم الواجب إلا به فهو واجب. That which an obligation is not complete except by, then it's an obligation. Right? So we have to appoint someone, or someone has to يتطوع. He has to give up his free time to come and call the adhan when the salah comes in.
for Isha prayer now there's 3 hours gap. Almost 2 hours.
Walau, even if it was that way. Somebody has to come call the adhan. He can go back home, whatever he wants to do, stay in the masjid, but the adhan is supposed to be called at the time. If not, we're changing the prayer. We're changing the prayer, right? The Prophet ﷺ said, يُعْرَضَ عَلَيَّ النَّاسِ عَلَى حَوْضِ. He said, people are going to be presented to me at my pond. فَيُضْرَبْ بَيْنِي وَبَيْنَهُمْ سُورٌ. There's going to be a wall put between me and him. وأقول أمتي أنا في رواية أخرى أمتي فيقال لي أنك لا تعلم ما غير من بعدك فأقول سفتا لمن غير بعدي. Now, so the Prophet he's going to see people presented to him at his pond, and then he's going to look and say my ummah, and then there's going to be a wall, and another nation, my companions, and then there's going to be a wall placed up between him and them, and he's going to say my companions, my ummah. And then it's going to be said to him, you don't know what they changed after you. And he's going to say, get away, those who changed after me. So this was the adhan. From the time that the salat was made obligatory until the Prophet's death. Abu Bakr, Umar, Uthman, Ali, Muawiyah, هكذا الأذان. نعم إمام. No. The issue of the adhan affecting the salah being correct or accepted is اختلاف بين العلماء. اختلف العلماء So some of them said, جزاك الله خير, Allah يحفظك. Now, so some have said that the adhan is obligatory for the salah, but not for the salah to be accepted. يعني الاختلاف في هل يؤثر عدم الأذان على صحة الصلاة؟ أي نعم. فبعض قالوا الأذان واجب للصلاة وليس لصحة الصلاة. نعم. Yeah, so he says obligatory for the prayer, but not for the prayer to be accepted. No. Wallahu a'lam.
We are praying in our home.
No.
Then we have to
on the iqamah, no. Because the adhan is called at the masjid. No. So that's another benefit that he prayed that. And the imam ثم خرج فصلى الصبح. And then he went out and he prayed Salatul Fajr. الصبح was another name for it. وفي لفظ آخر للبخاري عن قريب مولى ابن عباس رضي الله عنهما أن عبد الله بن عباس رضي الله عنهما أخبره أنه بات ليلة عند ميمونة زوج النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم وهي خالته. نعم. فاضطجعت في عرض الوسادة. في عرض الوسادة. He said that Ibn Abbas said they spent the night on the house of Maymuna, and she's his maternal aunt and the wife of the Prophet ﷺ. He said, so I laid down on a pillow, on the whiteness of a pillow. وَاضْطَجَعَ رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم وأهله في طولها. Subhanallah. بهذا من فوائد من لطف النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم. These are other benefits. He said, so I laid down, Ibn Abbas was a little boy. He said, so I laid down by the width of the pillow. And the Prophet ﷺ and my aunt laid down by the length of the pillow. Nah, subhanallah. So a benefit of this is showing the gentleness in the what would you call it in English, that the Prophet ﷺ kana ishri, he was approachable. He was approachable. He was normal. So he spent time with his family. Look at this. And another narration that he entered upon the house of Ali radiallahu anhu. And Ali and Fatima was in the bed, and the Prophet got in the bed with them and stretched out his feet. Ali radiallahu anhu said, حتى شعرت ببرد قدمي النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم على بطني, till I felt the coldness of the Prophet's feet on my stomach. SubhanAllah. So this is how the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم interacted with his family. Now, in a normal way. فنام رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم حتى يا شيخ كما قلت انتصف الليل أو قبله بقليل. So as the Sheikh was saying, that the Prophet prayed at the first third, the middle third, and the last third. He said, so the Prophet ﷺ slept until half of the night was gone, or before half of the night by a little bit. أو بعده بقليل. استيقظ رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم فجلس يمسح النوم عن وجهه بيده. So the Prophet woke up and sat up and was wiping. This is normal. He's wiping the sleep from his face. Wiping the sleep from his face. ثم قرأ العشر الآيات الخواتيم من سورة آل عمران. And then he recited the last 10 ayats from Surah Ali Imran. فإذن هذه السنة. هذه السنة. To get up and recite the last 10 ayat from Ali Imran. ثم قام إلى شن معلقة فتوضأ منها. شن is like a container. Hey, nah. So this is the type of container that they used to use. فتوضأ منها. And then he made wudu from it. فأحسن وضوءه. انتبهوا. Look at, pay attention, Ibn Abbas. He said, then he made wudu and he perfected his wudu. He was paying attention to the way he was making wudu. And then he perfected his wudu. ثم قام يصلي. And then he stood and prayed. قال ابن عباس فقمت فصنعت مثل ما صنع. He said, so I stood up and I did. This hadith is funny. He said, then I stood up and I did like he did. ثم ذهبت فقمت إلى جنبه. So I made the wudu. I did exactly what the Prophet did. I recited those 10 ayat. Then I stood by his side. Now, فوضع يده اليمنى على رأسي وأخذ بأذني اليمنى عفوا نعم يفتلها فصلى ركعتين. So Ibn Abbas stood to the wrong side. So the Prophet ﷺ pulled him to come to the right, to the other side. Now, he said, ثم نعم فصلى ركعتين. So then he prayed 2 rak'at. ثم ركعتين. Then 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 2. ثم ركعتين. نعم. ثم أوتر. ثم اضطجع حتى أتاه المؤذن. And then he made witr and laid down until the mu'adhin came to him. فقام فصلى ركعتين خفيفتين. And this is important. The 2 rak'at before Fajr are light. They're not long. They're very light. To the point, there's a narration of our mother Aisha radiallahu anha. She said when the Prophet prayed the 2 rak'at before Fajr, she didn't know if he recited Al-Fatiha or not. Huh? So it's 2 very light rak'at and not long rak'at, and the recitation in them is not known. Nah. Right? So ثم خرج فصلى الصبح. And then he left out and he prayed Salat al-Fajr by the people. وَلَفْظُ مسلم عن ابن عباس رضي الله عنهما أنه بات عند النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم ذات ليلة فقام نبي الله صلى الله عليه وسلم من آخر الليل. Now this is the other one. So we got the first third, got the middle, this is the one. He said in Muslim, in his wording, it said that Ibn Abbas, he spent the night at the Prophet ﷺ's house one night, and the Prophet of Allah stood the last part of the night. فخرج فنظر إلى السماء ثم تلا هذه الآيات في آل عمران. And then he recited these verses. Then he walked out and looked in the sky. And then he recited these verses from Ali Imran. إن في خلق السماوات والأرض واختلاف الليل والنهار حتى بلغ فقنا عذاب النار. He recited from the point of, indeed, in the creation of the heavens and the earth, and the difference of the night and the day, until he reached, so save us from the punishment of the fire. ثم رجع إلى البيت. Now, فاستوك, and then he used the siwak. فتوضأ, and then he made wudu. ثم قام فصلى, and then he stood and prayed. ثم اضطجع, and then he laid down. ثم قام فخرج فنظر إلى السماء فتلا هذه الآية. Now, and then he went back out, looked into the sky, and recited those verses. ثم رجع فتسوك, and then he returned and did the miswak again. فتوضأ ثم قام فصلى, and then he made wudu, and then he stood and prayed. Subhanallah. Subhanallah. You know, in these days, one looks at the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, in which he said from the signs of the hour is that the time will be decreased. Right now, maybe. Right now, maybe. But when you read this, he did all this in one night, you say, how? Well, where's the time, right? يعني من علامات الساعة قصر الوقت. كان الوقت قصر. فواحد يقرأ في هذه الروايات ويقول يعني أين الوقت كي واحد فعلا يكون
هو تقارب الزمان.
أي نعم تقارب الزمان. Yeah, it's on the signs of the hour. So you say, can you do that in one night? You know what I'm saying? Subhanallah. لكن اللي تقارب الزمان ليس من أجل الزمان فعلا تقارب، لكن المشكلة ذهاب البركة. So it's not that the time really is getting closer, but there's no blessings, no barakah in the time. So the person says that he does his best. He gets up early. He goes to sleep early, but he still doesn't find the time to do what he needs to do concerning his dunya and deen.
الإمام النووي ما عاش إلا 30 سنة يعني
وكل ما فعل في وقت قصير.
النووي في بيت له في رياض الصالحين.
سبحان الله.
هذا القبول.
أي نعم. سبحان الله. He's talking about Imam al-Nawawi that he had a short life. He had a very short life. But look at everything that he did before he died. Nah. He said Imam al-Nawawi was 46 when he died. 46. سبحان الله. حتى إمام السيوطي يعني تقاعد من التأليف والتدريس على 40. Imam Suyuti stopped. If you look at all his work, he has over 200 books. He stopped teaching, and he stopped teaching and stopped writing books at the age of 40. At the age of 40, he has over 200 books. And I'm not talking about pamphlets. I'm talking about volumes. 8 volumes, 12 volumes, 5 volumes, 1 volume, 200. And he stopped teaching and stopped writing at 40. No. So this is some of the benefits we wanted to take from this hadith, and it shows us these ayah from Surah Ali Imran as something also from the Sunnah to recite them when someone woke up. And this hadith is from a type called musalsal. Musalsal is that where the narrator acts out a story, like a story that is taking place, and then he smiled for yabtasim, and then he smiles, so he smiles, and then he did this, and then he does it like that. So if you look at what the Prophet ﷺ then in this hadith, in Ibn Abbas followed to the T. When I said it was a funny hadith, it's another narration of this hadith. In Sahih Muslim, the Ibn Abbas said, فقام فصلى فافتتح بالبقرة والثانية بآل عمران والثالثة بالنساء. So the Prophet stood up in the first rak'ah. He stood up the first rak'ah. He began with Baqarah. Then he recited Ali Imran. Then he recited Surah An-Nisa. He said, what? Until I had a bad thought in my head. So the listener said, what was that bad thought? He said, I thought to leave the Prophet ﷺ to finish. Yeah. I thought about leaving the Prophet ﷺ. Like, this is 1 rak'ah. He made in 1 rak'ah, Al-Baqarah, Ali Imran, and Surah An-Nisa. In 1 rak'ah. And then our mother Aisha said, his ruku' used to be the same length as his qiyam. La ilaha illallah. أين نفس الطول من الركوع والقيام نفس الطول. The same length. Now imagine the Prophet is reciting Al-Baqarah. And remember, كان النبي من وصف قراءته كان يقف عند كل آية. He used to stop at every ayah. He didn't mix ayahs together. He used to recite. And recite 1 ayah, stop, then recite the next ayah. So imagine going to Baqarah, Ali Imran, and Nisa, stopping at each and every ayah. When he read verses about Jannah, he used to ask Allah, oh Allah, grant me Jannah. Ayahs about punishment of the fire, he used to seek refuge. So this is how the ta'anni, he used to recite with like patience and taking his time and to feel the verses, to feel what he was reciting. And to ponder over what he was saying. Subhanallah. So his prayer was different. كانت تقول فلا تسألني عن قولها وجمالها. أين حسنها جزاك الله خير. نعم. She used to say, don't ask me. She used to describe the Prophet. So I said, don't ask me about how beautiful every rak'ah was and how long it was. So look at this. Look how the way she looked at it. She described a lengthy prayer as beautiful. Huh? But today, right? هي وصفت صلاة طويلة بحسن. اليوم لو طولت على الناس فليكون على جمالي
يعني فرحنا بها لكن اليوم فرحنا منها.
أي نعم لا إله إلا الله كما كنا نقول هذا من كم يوم. He said in that day when we talked about the other day, the Prophet used to say, bring us relaxation with the adhan, right? And by the prayer coming. But today people say, bring us relaxation by the prayer going. Not by the first coming. Subhanallah. Subhanallah. We just talked about that the other day. Nah. Okay, so if there are any statements or questions, we're going to stop here. Next week, ثانيا شرح مفردات الآيات الكريمات والحديث. We're going to go through the explanation of the vocabulary of the verses in the hadith. Nam Abu Rumaysa.
Now, I have 2 questions and a comment.
Naam, inshallah.
The first one is calling the iqama, is it wajib before the prayer for the one who happens to pray alone?
Nah, for the men, definitely. The men have to call the iqama.
Okay.
Nah.
Okay. The second question, you mentioned the hadith used to make the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he made the miswak before he performed wudu. Is there a hadith that he did it during wudu? Like a part of rinsing
I don't know. الأخ يسأل يعني هو قال في هذا حديث ذكر في هذا حديث أن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم كان يستاك قبل الصلاة عفوا قبل الصلاة. هل في حديث أنه كان يستاك أثناء الوضوء؟
لا.
أي نعم. The Sheikh said no, he doesn't know anything like that. Me myself, I know anything before wudu or after wudu or قبل الصلاة.
Yeah.
لما سئلت عائشة رضي الله عنها يعني بماذا كان رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم يبدأ يعني إذا أتى إلى بيته قالت بالسواك.
أي نعم. He's mentioned the hadith of our mother Aisha رضي الله عنها that the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم, if he came to the house, he used to begin with brushing his teeth before entering.
No. And the comment also, it's extremely important, for us to learn the Arabic because we're missing details, following it depending on translation. It's a means of establishing yaqeen because we know the actual Arabic, as far as like details like the sitting after the salat, fi makanihi, this. So details comes in the Arabic, it's not really sometimes not present in the translation.
Skipped over in the translation. Now it's true. That's a very important benefit. Learn the Arabic. The Quran is Arabic. The Hadith, the Sunnah is Arabic. Learn the Arabic is very important. Because of that, it's true. We miss out on some things, or it's like we spoke about the translation. I don't know if it was correct in Dar es Salaam. It said the people are making wudu from their wrist to their elbow. That you wash your hands 3 times, and then you wash your arm from your wrist to your elbow. And this was a mistaken translation. How many years going off the translation because that was a translation in Bukhari, I used to make wudu like that. كان ترجمة خاطئة لصحيح البخاري في كتاب الطهارة حديث عثمان رضي الله عنه لما شرح وضوء النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم والركعتين بعده. فكان في ترجمة أن عثمان رضي الله عنه غسل يديه 3 مرات إلى رزق.
صح.
أيوة. ثم استنشق وتمضمض ثم غسل. انظر ترجمة يقول ثم غسل وجهه خلاص ثم غسل ذراعي من الرزق إلى المرفقين. لكن تركوا اليد
يعني والتخليل.
لا تركوا اليد في ترجمة تركوا اليد وبدل الغسل من هنا.
هو الوضوء سبحان الله يصب الماء بيديه هكذا ويفعل هكذا
But it's natural when you want to wash from wrist to here, you take water in your hand and take.
No, but what happened in the translation? But what happened in the translation? They thought that when Uthman radiallahu anhu washed his hands 3 times, they counted that as part of wudu. That was sunnah. That wasn't part of wudu. And then when they said he washed his hands the second time, they said he began from here. Why? Because he had already washed his hands. The first time he washed his hands wasn't wudu. That was sunnah. The second time he washed his hands, he was making wudu. So he has to start where he started the first time and go all the way up.
حتى النص من الآية يا أيها الذين آمنوا إذا قمتم إلى الصلاة فاغسلوا وجوهكم وأيديكم.
أي نعم. إلى المرافق. أي نعم. فالمترجم فلذلك الأخ هو يعني يشجع الإخوة والأخوات على تعلم اللغة العربية. أي نعم. لأن في أشياء تسقط من المترجم أو ممكن المترجم لا يفهم.
يمكن
أين نعم أمدو.
Between Imam and a Sheikh.
طيب يقول ما الفرق بين إمام والشيخ. Okay, an imam has many meanings. من معاني الإمام, from the meanings of imam, is leader. So whoever leads the people in prayer is an imam, even if he's not a sheikh. He's an imam. كل ما يؤم الناس فهو imam ولو لم يكن شيخا, even if he's not a sheikh. Then you have other meanings for imam. بمعنى المترسخ في العلم. It means someone who's firmly grounded in knowledge. Right? هنا إمام البخاري إمام في الحديث. He was an imam in hadith. So it means somebody firmly grounded in knowledge. Then you have Imam al-Dawla. You have the Imam who is the leader of the Muslims. He's considered the Imam. Even if he wasn't a sheikh, then he's still the Imam, the one who was put to be the leader of the Muslims. Even if he didn't have knowledge and was a sheikh, then he's still the Imam. So Imam means leader in general. But in specific instances, it means somebody has a lot of knowledge. You have Imam of Hadith or Imam of Qira'ah, the Imam of recitation and like that. Those have a lot of knowledge in that particular thing. Imam fi Nahm, and the scholar and Imam in the language and like that. So Imam means leader in general. Yeah, I guess Sibawayh, Al-Khalil, and Akhfash. No. So like these great scholars of Lugha. Okay? As for Sheikh, then most of the time it has two meanings. من تعدى 60, whoever is 60 years, above 60 years, Sheikh. Right?
Old man.
Hey, now.
Old man.
Old man. No. وأبونا شيخ كبير. And our father's an old man. Yeah, hey, now. نعم شعيب. Or يا ويلتى ألد وأنا عجوز وهذا بعلي شيخة. أي نعم. When Sarah, the wife of Ibrahim, she said, when the angels told her she was going to give birth to Ishaq, she said, and after Ishaq Yaqub, she said, what's going on? How am I going to have a child when I'm an old woman, Ajuz, وهذا بعلي, means husband, Sheikha, and my husband is a sheikh. Oh, man. You know that Ismail was born when Ibrahim was what? 85. So he was a sheikh. Like that. Hey now, mashallah. Now, عنده أسئلة يعني كثيرة. Hey now, mashallah. Yeah. Hey now, he's saying that you have a good mind because you're asking these type of questions. He says like Ibn Abbas when he was young and he was sitting with the older companions, and then when he got older, the people asked him, "How did you learn all of these things?" He said, "With a heart, with an attentive heart, or an intellectual heart, and an asking tongue." He wasn't afraid to ask questions. He asked questions. What about this? What about that? Now, so that's the difference between the Imam and the Sheikh.
One more thing.
Yes.
Is in front.
Aina. So the word Imam is from the same root as Amam. So he's in front. That's why he stands out front for the Salah. Aina. In the Arabic language. No.
So Sheikh also means old. Also means.
Yes.
Sheikh is also knowledgeable.
Now, yeah. So the second meaning of Sheikh is also like Imam from the Ma'ani is Sheikh, man tarasakha fil ilm. Somebody who's very strong in knowledge. Very strong in knowledge, it becomes very knowledgeable. Now. Subhanallah. Another meaning for Imam is book. Every like the ayah the Sheikh quoted, that and then every people will be called on bi imamihim, by his book in Isra. They're going so whoever's going to be given his book. So his book, the book that these went into, that's going to be his Imam Yawm al-Qiyamah. La ilaha illallah.
That goes before you.
Subhanallah. Right? Yep. أي نعم استنبط يعني هذه فائدة جليلة. وقال لأن الكتاب هذا يقدمك سبحان الله. It's going to be before you. Wallahu a'lam. Nah. Subhanallah. Hey, nah. So if it's going to be in the right hand, then it's a good book. You're okay. If it's going to be in the left hand or behind the back, hey, nah. So if it's on the left hand or behind the back, then it's no good. But if the book is given in the right hand, well, alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Now, Any other statements or questions before we start? Now, Muhammad. Will let Muhammad's question be the last one? Now.
What is like the consequences of if only praying all the other prayers except Isha? There's a lot of Muslims.
No. La ilaha illallah. The Prophet ﷺ was sent with how many prayers? So the danger of the person leaving out one of them, either he's saying that, either he's saying that the Prophet ﷺ brought too much. He brought more than he was sent with. Is that proper to say? So then, what is the excuse of this individual? So if the person leaves off Isha prayer, believing it to be, knowing that it's an obligation, but he does it out of laziness, then he's committing a major sin. But if he believes, because you have some people called Al-Quraniyun, they call them the people of the Quran, and they take verses from the Quran, they say the Quran only mentions 3 prayers, so you don't have to pray 5 when you get praying 5. Right? نعم يزعمون أن ما فرض إلا 3 صلوات في كتاب الله بل وهي 5. إذا جئنا بالآيات من الروم والآيات من الإسراء نجد 5. If we combine the verses about the Salah from Surah Al-Rum and Surah Al-Isra, you'll find 5 prayers mentioned. So it's 5 prayers are mentioned in the Quran. أين وشرح and the Sunnah completes the Quran. So if somebody leaves off that, number one, they're committing a major sin. And there's a narration of Ibn Abbas that said whoever intentionally missed the prayer, Allah would not accept it from him even if he prayed it 1,000 times. But he would still have to pray it. See, there are certain things, like for instance, and this is not the same thing, but let's say someone who takes intoxicants, right? His prayer will not be accepted for 40 days. But he still has to pray 5 times a day for all of them. It doesn't mean he doesn't have to pray for 40 days. He has to pray for 40 days, but he has to know that the Prophet ﷺ said his prayer is not accepted. من شرب الخمر. أي نعم. فالصلاة ما زالت واجبة عليه مع عدم قبولها. Right? The prayer is still obligatory, even though it's not going to be accepted. Right? Until he repents and until those 40 days pass. This is the aqoba. Uquba dunyawiyya. This is a punishment in the dunya. No. So that's the danger. So anybody's leaving off a prayer intentionally, he has to be careful because number one, he's committing a major sin. And if he doesn't believe in it, he doesn't have to do it, he actually leaves Islam. He or she leaves Islam by saying, oh, I don't have to pray Isha. I prayed 4 is enough or something like that. No, the person will leave the fold of Islam. Nah. When the Prophet said Mu'adh fil Yemen, right? He said, you're going to a group of the people of the book. So let the first thing you call them to, أَيُّوَحِدُ اللَّهِ فَإِنْ أَطَاعُكَ لِذَلِكَ فَعَلِّمْهُمْ إِنَّ اللَّهَ افترض عليهم some salawat. Then tell them that Allah made 5 prayers obligatory upon them. So whoever comes with 4 is coming with the religion of the Prophet Muhammad. And look at the guy who لم يحسن صلاته. The Prophet said to him, اذهب فصلي فإنك لم تصلي. He said, go and pray. He was praying, and the Prophet said you didn't pray. So what about the one who didn't pray at all? This man, he was praying wrong. He wasn't going to ruku right. He wasn't going to sujood right. The Prophet said, go back and pray because you have not prayed. This is somebody who's praying wrong. So what about somebody who doesn't pray at all? Or left a whole prayer out? So this is the danger. Nah. We'll stop here. هذا وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. We ask Allah to give us sincere intentions, beneficial knowledge, and righteous actions according to the Sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Ameen. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam.